Now that we've added Island as a service provider, we are ready to begin replication. So for this video, we will walk through creating a replica job to Island's Veeam Cloud environment. In the Veeam console, under the Backup and Replication window, click on the Replication job button at the top of the screen. On the first page here, we'll give the job a name, and we can also give a description if we want. Then we'll check the middle box here for separate virtual networks. This will allow us to map the production and the recovery networks later on in the job settings. Alright, we'll go ahead and click Next here. Under the Virtual Machines page, we will select the VMs we want to add to this job. Click the Add button to drill down into your environment and select VMs you would like to add to this job. You can select one or multiple VMs to add in, or search for VMs in your environment. I'm just going to go back to my 2 test servers though, and we'll hit Add to add these servers to the job, and then we'll go ahead and click Next. Under the Destination page, click the Choose button to the right of the Host or Cluster box, and then select Cloud Host. Expand the Island Veeam Cloud Connect URL and select your hardware plan and click OK. After that, we'll go ahead and click Next. Now we are able to map the source side network to the recovery network in the hardware plan. To start, we will click the Add button, and then we'll click the Browse button next to Source. In my last video, when we added Island as a service provider, we configured the hardware plan network 1 to be the same subnet as my source site's VM network. So now I will select the VM network as the source here to start the mapping in the job settings. Next, I'll hit the Browse button next to Target, and then I'll select my hardware plan network 1 to complete the mapping statement. Go ahead and hit OK. If there are multiple networks in use on the production side, we can add more network mapping rules. Let's say we have a VM with one NIC connected to my VM network and another NIC connected to VM network 2. So in this case, I will select VM network 2 for my source, and then I will browse the hardware plan network 2 to finish my new network mapping. Hit OK there, and once we have all of our mappings complete, we can go ahead and hit the Next button. Under Job Settings, select a repository to use from your source site. This might be the same repository you use on your local backups. This is not where the actual replicas will be stored, just the meta files that contain replica information. The replica suffix is added to the VM name in vSphere at the target site. You can just leave this to default. And then you can increase or decrease the restore points based on storage availability and retention needs from your side. Before we continue on, click on the Advanced button. We'll want to change the storage optimization setting to WAN target. This will give us the best performance for replicating to an offsite target. Hit OK, and then we'll click on Next. If you're using dedicated proxies on your side, you can select which proxies to use for this job. Most likely though, you can just click Next here with the default settings. If you'd like to enable application-aware snapshots, you can enable that here. You will also need to provide guest OS administrator credentials for the replica. This is typically more helpful if you test a failover and found out that a database or other application came up corrupted. I'm just going to go ahead and click Next here, and I'll go to my schedule. Keep in mind that when a replica job runs or a backup job runs, it takes a snapshot of the VM. So it's best to try to avoid backing up and replicating the same server at the same time. I have a local backup job here that runs at 9 PM, and I know it finishes pretty quickly, so I'll go ahead and keep my job to run nightly at 10 PM. You can change the number of times the job will auto retry if there's a failure, such as a network blip or a disconnect, and you can change the amount of time before each of those auto retries. Lastly, you can create a termination window if you want to select blocks in time in which the job will be terminated or not allowed to start. To do so, just drag over the blocks that you wish for the job to be disabled, and then click the Disabled button. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel out of that. Now that we have our schedule set, we'll hit Apply here. I'm actually going to allow the job to run as soon as I click Finish, just to make sure that I'm transferring data to Island correctly. So I'll go ahead and click Finish here. And now I'm just waiting for the statistics to populate. Alright, all is looking good here, and I can see some data moving. So in the next video, we'll go over viewing our replicas from our console here, as well as creating a Veeam failover plan.